Welcome, I'm Ramin and this is Anna, and together we built a camper van for us to travel in with our dogs. Join us in the process of converting this into this. In our intro video I promised that the next video or the next series of videos of our build process would be coming soon, and that's now over a year ago. But well, last year happened, which is pretty much in par with what the 2020s have been in general. Lots of changes to everyone's plans and all of that. One big change in our plans was that we got an unexpected little addition to our family, aka Kula. You can see a short little video of an introduction of him into our pack in our shorts. But to get into what this series of videos is about, our process of converting an empty, big transit van into our camper van known as Noor. When we started the whole build process, one of the first questions many people asked us was, why? And the answer is pretty simple. We both like traveling, and with a bunch of dogs, traveling without having your own accommodation is extremely difficult. Finding hotels or cabins or whatever which accept dogs is a challenge. It also means that you're paying a lot of extra money. Typically a hotel will bill 10 euros per dog per night or something like that. In the lucky case you might find a hotel that will only bill you 10 euros per dog per stay, but even then that would mean that you have to stay in the same hotel for a long period of time, and if you're on a road trip that doesn't usually happen. At one point of time we had 5 dogs in the house and we didn't really travel much at that time. Then for different reasons our pack size dropped down to 3 and we made a show trip up north from where we live in Finland, and we reserved a cabin. And that's when we both realized that we really miss traveling with our dogs instead of just traveling together without our dogs. I also come from a family in which road trips have been very normal. My mom did road trips in her Volkswagen bus in the 60s and early 70s in the US. My parents had a Volkswagen bus when I was a kid in the 80s, and we traveled all around Finland and the Nordics in that. And it's also the car with which I learned how to drive. So with this history of Volkswagen buses in the family and road trips in both Finland, the Nordics, and road trips that we've taken both me with my parents and then Anna and myself together in the US, it's not really surprising that we wanted a camper van with which we could travel with our dogs. So in 2018 there were 2 things that came together at the perfect time. First was of course our trip up north to Kainuu with our dogs, which kind of triggered the want to travel more with our dogs again. And at the same time, this one family on Instagram that I'd been following, Molly Mish, started converting a Sprinter van for their own use into travel. And that's when I really realized that, hey, you can buy a big van, you can build it out yourself and make it into something that fits your needs, or in our case of course our needs of traveling with 2 people and 3 big dogs. For some reason all of the Volkswagen bus travelers that I've been following on Instagram in their either custom built Volkswagen buses or Westfalias etc. had never really triggered the thought that you could build something like this yourself as well. So then in late 2018 we started going down this rabbit hole of looking at van tours and van build series on YouTube. At the time there was a lot less material on YouTube than there is now, but there was enough for us to get inspiration on what is possible, on different kinds of layouts, on different options, on different gizmos and thingamajigs you can buy for your van and all of that. But then I came across this website, Far Out Ride, which was, at least for my engineer brain, very good, because there are 2 Canadian engineers who have made an extensive website full of resources on van builds. And that, in addition to all of the other videos we found, was enough to give us the guidelines we needed to start designing our own van. As a big factor in our going down the rabbit hole of YouTube and camper vans and van life and all of that was when we came across Combi Life and his journey from South America up all the way into Alaska, although getting into Alaska didn't happen until we were already building our van as well, but still, it was a very inspiring series of videos to watch, in addition to all of the van tours and all of that. After coming up with the idea of building a van, then getting some inspiration and looking at all of these van tours and etc., the next step, of course, was making it a reality. In our case, it meant we needed to sell our old car that was in our yard, just so that we'd have room for another car. And having three vehicles and a family of two would have been simply insanity. So we had to start the process of selling our Volkswagen Passat, and at the same time we had to start researching a suitable van and trying to find one used in Finland. We decided that we wanted a van that we could buy with cash, so that limited the age of the van. That in 2018 it meant that we were looking for vans that were 2010 or older. Also, because of Finnish legal issues, we needed to find a very big van, or at least a high van, and then because we wanted lots of floor space for 3 dogs, it meant that we had to find a long van. So we were pretty much limited to a long wheelbase, extended and high roof model, and pretty quickly limited our selections to Transits, Sprinters or Crafter vans. And then because the Sprinters and Crafters of 2010 or older, most of the ones that we saw online were extremely rusty, we started gravitating towards Ford Transits. At the same time that we were searching for a van, we of course started to think up our list of what our priorities are for the van. Must-haves in our van, or what we will prioritize in our design. Anna wrote up a list of 4 items, which was dogs, safety, maximal floor space, and ventilation. In addition to this very short list, but very important for our design, was the requirements that Finnish law has. Finnish taxation of vehicles is a quagmire of rules and regulations and different options, but basically to avoid paying significant back taxes on a van, we needed to be able to build a so-called tax-free camper van. And to do that, we had a list of must-haves, which is it has to have a bed, which was a minimum of 120 by 180 centimeters, which is basically a bed for 2, or then 2 separate beds of 60 by 180, but specifically this. It had to have a refrigerator, it has to have at least 2 seats and a table, which can be switched into bed mode, etc. It has to have 185 centimeters of standing height at a 1.3 meters by 40 centimeters in the direction of travel. Basically, it has to have some kind of a hallway. It has to have heating in the living area. It has to have a mass of over 2,500 kilos. And it has to have a cooking option which is permanently built in. We didn't want to rely on gas, because the gas build-out would have then had its own set of requirements according to Finnish law. And that would have just meant that we would have had to cut more holes and just been more of a hassle to build. After coming up with the basic requirements that we had for the van, or for our design of the living area of the van, we first started drawing just on paper various ideas of the layout, etc., etc., etc. But with all of this in mind, we continued our search for a van, and luckily we found one option very close to us, which was pretty cheap, aka meaning that the person selling it wanted to get rid of the van pretty quickly. And then when we went to see it. It looked decent enough, it was good enough to drive, and the bonus was that they were willing to buy our old Passat, so we didn't even have to wait to sell that. And after a bit of negotiation, we came to a deal and we switched cars. We also forked over some cash at the same time, and we were the proud owners of a long wheelbase, high roof Ford Transit from 2007.